They didn't freeze our bank accounts, they literally took the money. So there's this in America, and I didn't know this, and this shows my privilege because this impacts a lot of people in this country. In America, state, local, and federal governments can take your assets if they suspect that they're connected to a crime. They don't freeze them, they literally take them. And then you have to hire lawyers to fight to get them back and to prove your assets are innocent. And often it is the case that you
How do
cannot.
they take your assets if you haven't been convicted? Isn't it innocent till proven guilty?
No, this is how they get around it. It's a legal fiction that is such a bastardization of our constitutional rights. It's about your assets, and your assets do not have due process. So they are fighting against your bank account. They're fighting your car, right? Your car doesn't have due process. So they will say they take your car. Say they find a dime bag of weed in your car. And they're like, we think you deal drugs out of this car. We're taking it. They take your car and they put it in their lot. First of all, if you don't fight to get your car back, they get to sell your car and keep the money. So they're very incentivized to do this. But second of all, if you do fight back, they will then file a lawsuit against your car. So it would be like US v. Toyota Camry. And then your Toyota Camry is the defendant. So they don't have due process because they're not a human being. And so then they can just drag you through the courts for years. In our case, we didn't have the ability to even fight to get our money back for 22 months. And for us, it was totally financially devastating. And like we had to sell our house, we had to sell our car, we had to liquidate retirement, borrow money, raise money, move in with family with our 4 kids.
I was going to ask, I have 1 kid and I'm a little overwhelmed at the moment. 4 kids, all under the age of 5.
Yeah.
And this got to be mentally excruciating.
Yeah, it's been really hard. We're really lucky that we have family that could help us by taking us in. They couldn't financially support us, but they could take us in. Yeah, it's hard. It's still hard to talk about. I mean, it's like it was a Tuesday in May and I was in a Zoom meeting and I got a notice that my bank account was empty. And you're like, how am I going to feed my kids? And the thing of it is after they took our money, the prosecutors told my husband's lawyers, if Carl pleads guilty, we'll give him some of the money back to feed his kids. And the only thing I could ever think of that is like, they are literally willing to let my 4 American babies, and I only say American because American kids aren't more important than other kids, but this is their government.
Yeah.
They're willing to let my babies starve over this. And they haven't even charged my husband with a crime, and they never did, right? It was just this pure, it felt like terrorism. Like yeah. And so.
And you mentioned the Department of Justice, so I want to get to that because the FBI involvement could be for low-level stuff like gang stuff, all the way up to, massive RICO racketeering. How does the how and why did the Department of Justice get involved with this? We do know the federal government has contracts with Amazon, but why did this, even if he was guilty, which he wasn't, why does a relatively low level thing like this go all the way up to the Department of Justice?
I think we want the answer to be that there's something we don't know or there's some big thing, but this is the answer, is that, Amazon has a lot of influence and power, and they hired a former federal prosecutor from the Eastern District of Virginia to call his former colleagues who were still at the Eastern District of Virginia. And one of the wildest things about our family situation is that Amazon ended up suing my husband in federal court after they had our money taken, which Amazon asked the DOJ to take our money and sent over my husband's employee bank account information in an email without a subpoena, which I think is illegal. But after Amazon knew we had no money, then they sued my husband as a further, let's just kick you in the teeth a little bit more. But we were able to fight that lawsuit and get to discovery, meaning the exchange of facts. And in discovery, we got all of the communications between Amazon and DOJ. So we could see exactly how this all happened. Quite literally, Amazon hired a former prosecutor to call his former colleagues, his friends. They set up a meeting. Before the first meeting, where Amazon literally went in to pitch a crime in a 60-page PDF presentation, the prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia hand-selected, and those are their words, not mine, their 2 very best prosecutors for Amazon's important matter. This was before they met. So those two prosecutors were in the meeting for them.
Was it phrased Amazon's important matter?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
And
that is like,
also we know that Virginia, correct me if I'm wrong, got awarded with this Amazon second headquarters years
yeah, I
ago.
mean, so yeah, so Amazon's HQ2 is in Crystal City, Virginia, which have you ever been to Crystal City?
No.
It's like, it's not a city. It's not a big city, right? Like no, I'm not trying to like be mean to people in Crystal City, but they're looking at New York, they're looking at all these places. They have this big nationwide contest with no rules, by the way. Amazon
Yeah.
never said they were going to actually like pay attention to the submissions in the contest. They chose Crystal City because it's right by Washington, D.C., because they can soft lobby everybody all day long. The
Right.
spouses of Amazon's workers work in the federal agencies. They can talk about it at the neighborhood picnic, at the Little League game, because Amazon has billions of dollars of government contracts. It
Right.
is their bread and butter. And so I think that's part of it too. I would see things like online, like the prosecutor who was in charge of the investigation would be liking things on LinkedIn about Amazon bringing jobs to their district, or it's really just all sorts of uncomfortably close things that happen. But that's why it happened. I'll tell you, like, that's how it happened. The why did Amazon take it to the DOJ? So Amazon has actually referred, I think, over 80 Americans for federal criminal prosecution in the past 5 years. They've referred landlords, third-party sellers, consultants. I think they're trying to make examples of people so that nobody messes with them, so that they know that we can crush you. But here, in this particular instance, Amazon had broken a contract with the real estate developer that they were targeting. And the terms of that contract said they could only get the real estate developer out of the contract if he pled guilty or was convicted of a felony. They broke the contract on February 19th, 2020. Their first meeting was on February 20th, 2020. So, they needed a felony.
It sounds to me also that I can't be certain, but it sounds to be part of their motive to refer all these, you said about 80, is if certain people are uncomfortable competition for them.
I think it's absolutely right. Like, I really wish the FTC would focus on this because they're using lawfare to crush competition. Like if you think about, they're picking winners and losers, right? And they had there's a man named Ed Rosenberg who runs an Amazon sellers group, helping Amazon sellers who are having issues with corporate, get accounts reinstated, all this stuff. They accused him of $100 million fraud. He ended up, after many years of fighting, pleading guilty to a $100,000 issue, and paid a fine and didn't go to prison, but he's a felon for the rest of his life. Right. And I think they wanted, they don't want that. They don't want Amazon sellers to unite, just like Amazon. It's the same as sort of like as a union, right? They don't want that. So,
but in the case of your husband, and tell me if I get anything wrong, it sounds like he's got a very unique and valuable skill. Mm-hmm. The contract stated that he could do side things while at Amazon. His side thing was identifying land that could be used for data centers. Amazon needs data centers for various things. And presumably he was competition for them if he was going to make deals with other companies for data centers.
I mean, yeah. So yes, it's an interesting way of looking. And to be clear, he didn't actually start doing the side thing until he left Amazon. So it was
right.
But so, I get nervous around the word competition because he had a non-compete, and Amazon doesn't sell real estate or develop real estate for sale. So what he did wasn't competitive, but you are right in that he could help other hyperscalers, source, locate, and build land. And
so indirectly.
No, I mean, you're exactly. I mean, right. They didn't want him to be able to do that.
Right. So let's bankrupt his family and imprison him.
Yeah. And of course, he, lost every bit of real estate development work that he had lined up when they accused him. And they also, we found this out many years into the litigation by fighting, they went to every developer Amazon had ever worked with. And they were like, are you working with Carl Nelson? And if you don't tell us, we can terminate our contracts with you. Wow. Which is just why they said they had some new policy that allowed them to ask this question, which when, push came to shove, they had no new policy. It was completely made up. But it was really just so much force, so much intimidation, so much fear.
As part of discovery, did you get any documents or any inkling that this was on Jeff Bezos' radar, that he had any involvement?
Yes, we did.